Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to the third session on the Azure track of the MCT West Africa Cloud Bootcamp 2021. Wow, we've had two amazing sessions already on data insight and on Bicep, the evolution of ARM. Now we're going to take that a step further, and the next topic is on using the power of GitHub Codespaces to launch your productivity. But before we move on, please ensure that you complete the session evaluation for the chance of winning amazing prizes, including an Xbox. So just go to the URL on the screen. We've also posted that in the chat window. And if you complete that, you stand the chance of winning amazing prizes. Also, please share our website and with your friends and your colleagues. Make sure you get them joining the sessions. Make sure that you're not selfish with the knowledge that you're learning. Make sure you share that around and make sure that everyone around you gets to learn the same thing that you're learning. Okay, so the next speaker that we have for you, we have Daniel Paulus. And Daniel is a serial conference organizer. He's also a meetup runner. So he's a principal consultant at Bright Blue, which is a Microsoft Azure focused consultancy company, and also is a Microsoft Azure MVP. So we're glad to have Daniel with us today. Hello, Daniel. How are you doing?
Hey, good. Here it's evening, so I'm not sure what's with you, but
it's evening also. So like it's
okay.
Like,
okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, I mean, this is a very, very interesting technology area. Actually, the keynote speaker today made reference of GitHub Codespaces. So it seems as if it's one of the areas that's like really, really hot at the moment.
Yeah, and I hope that if I'm done with speaking, you all know why you have to use Codespaces. So I'm ready.
Awesome. So yeah, so I'll hand over to you, Daniel. So we'll take your screen live and over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Great to be here. Thank you all for joining. Let's move. Yeah. Let's start with the presentation. So again, my name is Daniel Paulus. I am an Azure MVP, but I'm also a Kubernetes subject matter expert at Bright Blue, which basically means that I work with containers every day, and I help companies to adopt a cloud-native mindset. You can find me on Twitter as PaulusTM. I love to hear from you, so if you're watching, please send me a tweet. That's great. You can also find me on GitHub. So there you can find more on containers, on Codespaces, on whatever you'd like. So what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to look at what is a developer workflow. And if we know what a workflow is, then what is a GitHub Codespace? How can that help me? Then we dive into a demo. So I will show you how it actually can make your workflow better. And then I show you how you can get it. And then we have hopefully time for questions. We have just 30 minutes, so I have to go speed run through this presentation, but I think you will get the hang of it. So what is a developer workflow? Every time that I join a new team or a new company to help the teams there, I am faced with the setup phase. I have to make sure that my laptop is able to run the solution that the team is building. This phase is usually the longest phase because I have to install the specific tooling, specific versions. If they use NPM, I have to download almost the entire internet in packages. And that all takes time. If I have done all of that, then I can finally start to contribute the feature that I love to build. When I'm done, I have to do testing, which is unit testing or integration testing, for which, again, I need specific tooling. If we're done, then, or if I'm done, then I can check with the team to see if there are if my changes are good enough. So I can check with a designer or what have you. If that's done, then I need to optimize. And then in the end, hopefully, we can deploy to production. This this workflow is time and time again. So take this, check it with your own workflow. I think it's almost the same. So what is this GitHub Codespaces thing? To make it as small as possible, it's an online IDE. It's simply VS Code in your web browser. It's hosted by GitHub, and it gives you the look and feel from your local VS Code. So it's a fully powered IDE. You have syntax highlighting, autocomplete, and debug tooling. It has all the plugins that you expect are also available in Codespaces. It has so it works from the repository. So every configuration that you like to share is included in Codespaces. And you can use this from anywhere. So I actually used Codespaces from an iPad in the train. As long as you have internet, you can use Codespaces. So let's not talk at slides. Let's just show you how that works. So this is my GitHub repo. And as you can see, it's a web application, a Vue web application with an API endpoint. And this is what we start to work on. Oh, I forgot to remove my workspace. So let's say that I am a new member to the team and I want to start to work on this application. I can simply, instead of the clone to my own laptop, I can say, go to Codespaces and create a new Codespace. As you can see, it's now building. This takes a moment. And let's read. Can I hide this? Yeah, I can hide it. All right. I think you all, or most of you, will know what they see. This is simply a VS Code editor in your browser. As you can see, we're on a default image. And there are some basic tools installed. So there is Python, there's Node.js, there's Docker, and there's a list that you can check if you like to know more. But let's dive in right away, and let's go to the API, because I want to change something to the API. So we're now, and to show you, it's a simple Azure Functions app. So in order to make sure that I have everything installed, I run npm install. Okay, so we now have everything ready to go. So let's run npm start. Oh no, we don't have everything. We're missing the Azure Functions runtime. So let's make sure that I install that as well. I copy paste this for easy access. And as you see, so this is the setup phase, right? I once again have to make sure that I have everything installed in order to run the application. But I'm installing this inside of the Codespace, and as you just saw, I'm using their bandwidth. So installing large amounts of data is quite faster than when I try this at home. Now let's run again. And as you can see, we can now start the application. And now the fun part is happening. As you can see on this notification, the application is now on port 7071. And as you can see here, it says it's on localhost, which is kind of strange because I'm using a cloud-based instance. So I would expect localhost to not work because that's my local machine, right? Well, they've made it in such a way that you can actually use localhost to go to your cloud instance and actually see the things that you expose on your local host. Because as you can see, we're now on the API catalog page, and we simply can see all the JSON that we expect. Well, how does this work? Here you see ports, and here we see what is exposed on that port. So there's the address where we just went to, and as you can also see, it's now on private. So I am the only one who can access this page. But we can set it to public. And then everyone from my team is able to authenticate with their GitHub account and visit my page. So if I want to make a prototype and I want to show something to the marketing team or whatever, I can simply hack it, expose it in the code space, and send the link on with chat to their department, and they can authenticate and see what is happening. Well, this is all fun and all, but we also have a view application. So let's move to the view app and repeat what we've just done. And as you can see, this is a lot more of packages to install, but it's also going quite fast because, once again, we're on the bandwidth of the cloud, which is way faster than my local home connection. Just give this a moment.
Yep. So sorry, Daniel. So while that is running, so one of the things that's been asked is that is it possible to zoom in a little bit? If
Sure.
Just make it a bit more legible. Yeah.
Is this better?
Awesome. I think that's better. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much for that.
Please let me know if there needs more zooming. So as you can see, we've just installed all those packages. And now let's make sure to show you something. There's another port that's being forwarded. And now we can simply go to the images are not working. It's a bug on my part, but as you can see, this is now actually reading the data from this API endpoint, and it's now showing that inside of a View app. But we're now done working in the cloud. You would really like to use VS Code to work some more. So let's go back to the repository. And now we're going to go to VS Code. Inside of VS Code, you can now say connect to Codespace. I'm going to check in the other screen if it's readable. And as you can see here, this is the Codespace that I've just launched. Do note that I am authenticated to GitHub. So they already know who I am. If you're not authenticated yet, they will ask you to authenticate in order to get all your Codespaces I simply click on the code space. Now we give it a moment. And once again, there's my application. So it didn't clone anything to my local disk. It's simply connected to the code space. And I can show you, is this big enough? Let me zoom in a bit. Hope that this is big enough. But as you can see, I am now inside of the code space. So I'm not running on my local system. This is all Codespaces. So once again, I can go to the API, and I can, just to make sure, run npm install. It's doing nothing because it's already there. And now I can say npm start. Was it still running? This is always with live demos. I've just tested all of this. Nothing happened. Well, retry. Is that there is no. Go to here. We should be able to, well, go to what was the and here it is. It was already running. So as you can see now, because I'm on my laptop, I do use localhost 7071 to connect to the code space. This is done by a transparent port forward. So we go to localhost, but it makes a tunnel underwater to the endpoint from the code space. So we can also go to 8080. Oh. And we see our shop. However, we installed the function app or the function runtime in our container. And it would be great when next time that someone gets into the team, they don't have to do that. It would be great if it's all there. So in order to tune your code space, you can make use of something called a dev container. And a dev container is basically a Docker file and JSON specification in order for the things that you would like to have installed already. So instead of using the default codespace image, we are going to use a dev container. And as you see, that there are a lot of dev containers, even Salesforce. This is all community-based, so you can find all of these on GitHub. If you like one, you can make a PR to the repo, and the Microsoft team might be able to get your container part of all of these. We are going to use the Azure Functions with Node.js. And just to skim through it, it's a Docker file, and you can pre-add extensions. So in this case, I would like to have the Azure functions already installed. But if I like extra function or extra extensions that I like my entire team to use, I could put them here. And the Docker file is simply using the Azure Functions Node 3 tools. And we have the option to install extra things if we'd like to. But for now, this is fine. Terminal. We add the dev container. Right. And we now simply now we go back to GitHub. And as you see, we've now put the dev container in place. So let's go to our code space and delete the code space. And make a new one from the main branch. So it's now building the container, which will take a moment more, but we can view the logs and you can see exactly what it is doing. As you can see, it's pulling it in, and that's why it takes a little bit longer than the default image, because that's already pulled. Come on. Just a few moments. Come on, speed up. Okay, so we go back to the demo in a sec, but you can use this with your GitHub team or as a GitHub Enterprise customer. If you're not a team, then Codespaces doesn't yet work for you. You can use VS Code in the cloud by pressing the dot on your keyboard when you're inside of a repo. The only downside is you do not get compute with that offering. But it's quite handy to make quick changes. When you do have a team or are an enterprise customer, then you can choose the compute from 2 cores to 32 cores. As you can see, the RAM goes along with it. And then the price is in dollar per hour. That's when it's running. So when you stop the code space, you will only pay the storage for the code space. It will go inactive. So when you're not using the code space, it will go inactive, I think, in half an hour. So you will not pay for unneeded code spaces. Let's go back to the demo. So we're once again here, making it bigger. API. So if all went well, we can now simply say npm start. And it's automatically got the Azure Functions runtime inside of the container. So I don't need to install that anymore. It's simply there. So the next team member can simply run npm install, npm start without having to care anything about the version of the Azure runtime. And to show you, I can now simply once again go to. And here is once again the JSON. That was my presentation. Are there any questions?
Awesome, awesome. That was amazing. That was amazing, Daniel. So before we even go to like question from the audience, so quite audience, if you do have any questions for Daniel, please now is your time to ask. I do have a quick question. So GitHub Codespaces is a it's very very interesting. It looks very interesting. But I remember I was looking online some weeks ago, and I saw this thing called vscode.dev, right? So where I could just go to a web browser and I could just
Yeah.
get VS Code and I could just upload files directly from my system into that environment. Is this sort of like a similarity between these, like what's going on with, Codespaces GitHub.dev and VS Code.dev?
I think so. So I think it's the same. Only with the Codespaces, you get compute. So, I lost you. So if I go to my web browser once again here, and I go out of my Codespace, go to repository, and
so we can't see your screen anymore in case you're sharing. So we can't see your screen in StreamYard.
Sharing right away. This one.
No problems. Yep, I can see that. So now we can see your screen.
Okay. So let me go to a different repo. Let's go to the DevOps Days repo. This is quite a large repo, but only text. So if I now press dot on my keyboard, it goes to GitHub.dev and to the same repo. And now I'm in VS Code in my web browser.
Yeah.
The only difference now is I don't have compute. So I cannot build anything. I cannot install runtimes.
I see.
It's simply text-based work. But if there is an here, so if there is a PR, I can simply click on it and it will open up that PR and I can get a side-to-side view. So if you have a large repo with open source and people are sending in a PR, this is a great way to quickly see what's happening in an editor with syntax highlighting, with everything that you like, but not with compute.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. And again, that's just very, very powerful. So at the moment, the next question would be, so the audience, I can see people asking, information about how they get started. How do people get started? Can anyone just go get started, or do they need to go through a process to get started?
Well, the thing is, you have to be in a GitHub team, in a paid plan.
Okay.
Or Teams is free up to 5 people, I think. But because you have to pay for this, they need to have your credit card details and stuff. So just as a single user, you cannot use Codespaces yet. I believe that will be coming in the future, especially if you all start asking for this, they might listen to you.
Got it.
I have access because of the beta that was going on. I still have that access, but I can lose the access because I'm not a team.
Oh, I see.
And I'm also not an enterprise user. So, but if you're a team or a startup with 5 or 6 people, you can just buy cheap hardware, just cheap laptops, and use Codespaces for the compute. You don't need this fancy MacBook Pro anymore because you can here you can run with 32 cores, man. I don't have that in my laptop.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of difference. Like if you have like very powerful builds to do, that does make a lot of difference.
And your team doesn't hack on the software the entire day, right? So the code space can be on pause or stopped, and then you don't pay for the compute. You can do other work on your business laptop and then use the same business laptop to work on code again, because the computer's in the cloud.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
So,
Sorry.
And that's especially for the big enterprises, which they all give standard laptops, right?
Yeah.
It's all standardized. And now you can have a team with a way more powerful code space, but on the same standard issue laptop without any problems.
Yeah. And it's essentially just opening up, this powerful productivity that in the past is only restricted to maybe organization with a lot of budgets to buy all this fancy, powerful compute. And this just opens that up to really any developer that has that has GitHub team access, and then you can just sort of take advantage of this.
So there is one thing that you can start with, and that is use dev containers. You can use a dev container in your VS Code as well.
Yeah.
So every project that you have, simply inject a dev container.
Yep.
Make sure that when a new member joins your team, they can simply in VS Code connect to dev container. They spin up the Docker image on their local workstation.
Yeah.
And they simply can start working right off. They don't have to install anything on their local workstation because it's all in the dev container.
Nice.
And then if you're ready for the move to Codespaces, you already have all of that in place.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. I think this is the final question that I'll be able to take in the interest of time. But Akimba Sunday asked a question here. He says, is Codespace part of the interface or application for computing?
Because of the interface or application for computing. It's I think you mean that it's part of so it gives you compute, but it's part of GitHub. So it's not a standalone thing. It's part of GitHub and it enables you to use the compute.
Yeah.
So when I think about it, they already do builds in the containers, right, with GitHub Actions. And for those builds, they use hardware. But when that hardware is not doing anything, why not use it for Codespaces? So that might be the story behind it. I do not work for GitHub. I have no idea if that is the actual story, but that makes a lot of sense to me. This is just an offering that they can make because they have the hardware to back it up.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that again, Daniel. That was amazing. So again, if you're here to follow
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problems. It's a pleasure. And that's Daniel's Twitter handle. If you're here to follow Daniel, make sure you follow him. So